This episode of the only podcast about movies was recorded a little differently. We had a special guest from literally across the damn planet call in and help us out with this one. So if you hear any audio anomalies or echoes or yada, 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 you know the drill. Just please be patient because this is a guest you don't want to miss. And now, enjoy the show. What is up, Internet? It's high noon. My name is Matthew Kroll.
And I'm not a monkey, I'm a scientist. Also, I'm a gaming noob, so this is going to be an interesting one. My name is Shahir Dowd.
And this is the only podcast about movies. Specifically, God, I am so excited about this today. We will be reviewing the Overwatch animated shorts.
So technically you're getting 6. Is it 6 shorts? Right?
7.
7
I
shorts.
think. Yeah.
7 movies.
7 short films.
For the price of one.
We're not doing it alone.
No, we're not.
Shahir, you have enlisted an expert.
I have enlisted an expert and an old friend, Lucy O'Brien, editor at IGN, based in Australia, and also former classmate. How are you, Lucy?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me, guys. I'm extremely excited to be talking about my favorite topic of all time, which is Overwatch.
Yes.
Well, so not that anyone would know this, but Lucy and I went to Victoria University of Wellington together, and we both did our masters in script writing at the. This is the International Institute. Yeah, the International Institute of Modern Letters. Remember with Ken Duncombe.
Yep.
Of Modern Letters?
That's what it's called.
Ooh.
Yeah. And Lucy is a fantastic writer. If I recall correctly, your play that year won the overall prize as best produced work. It did. But then I moved to Sydney and became a games critic instead. So, well, tell me how that happened. So it's and this is actually the first time Lucy and I have spoken, maybe in about 10 or more years now.
Right.
I think.
Yeah, both our accents have changed just ever so slightly.
Yeah, you've gotten more Australian,
and you've gotten more American. I mean, it stands.
Oh, you hear that?
It stands to reason. It stands to reason.
So Lucy, walk me through going from Wellington to Sydney. How and going from the International Institute of Modern Letters to IGN.
Well, basically, I did the playwriting thing for a while, and we actually did put on that particular play that won the award back in the day. But I just discovered that there was no money in it, and so
money in the theater.
There's no money in the theater. So what I decided to do was move to the highly lucrative games journalism space, thinking that there would be tons of money in that. Apparently not. But listen,
I've been lied to.
I've been lied to. But listen, I've been doing it for so long. There's sort of I can't really fathom stopping now. So it's just I kind of fell into it basically, and here I am.
But you're really prolific, so my kind of litmus test here is that I was walking through the office at MTV one day, and I think I texted you or I sent you a message when this happened. But I had a couple of friends who were watching something from IGN, and you popped up on the screen.
Yeah,
and I was like, oh, there she is. And then every now and again, I do because I'm not that into gaming and I'm not that in that world, but whenever I do, I kind of see you in it.
Yeah.
So you're out there.
I'm out there, and it is a case. I've been at IGN for 4.5 years now, so I'm one of those faces that's kind of unavoidable for better or for worse, depending on who you talk to. But yeah, it's a great site to work for, and as you say, I do have the flexibility of being able to talk about games and film, which is really exciting.
Yeah, well, and in that respect, it's been a while. What have you been watching? What are you? I feel like we're kind of catching up now.
Even if we're going over, for instance, the best films of the year for you, 2016,
or just something you've seen that you love recently.
Oh God, that's so much pressure. Well, actually, I will talk about the film that I saw last night, and this is probably old news for you guys because, of course, over in the States, you guys get things so much earlier than we do here in Australia. But I finally saw Jackie last night with Natalie Portman.
Oh yes.
And I thought it was great. I went in with, I basically had no expectations. I hadn't checked Rotten Tomatoes. I've always kind of thought Natalie Portman has never really had the shoulders to support a movie before. And I include Black Swan in this.
I was going to say, not even Black Swan?
Not even Black Swan. But she really nailed that role in Jackie, and I was actually kind of moved to tears for a story that was essentially, just the sort of aftermath of the terrible JFK assassination, and not much more than that. It was really moving and really affecting and beautifully shot, and yeah, it was just one of those films that I went into again with just such low, just no expectations, because I'm not really a huge biopic person. Right. But I was really taken by that film. So for me, that's the one that comes to mind immediately when you say what film have you been grabbed by lately? Just because it's so unexpected.
Yeah, no, I actually had a very similar situation with that film. I went in, like, again, zero expectations, and I came out, I was like, that was pretty damn good. And
it was.
A lot of people, there was a lot of backlash for Natalie Portman's accent in the film, which is really silly because they're like, oh my God, she was so horrible. Didn't sound anything like it. But then if you go back and look at the actual tapes, she sounds exactly like her.
Exactly.
So people's memory of it.
That's right. And I think people were really thrown by the fact that it was Natalie Portman with an accent, right? Yes. And she didn't really nail the accent in V for Vendetta. And I just think maybe she hasn't got the greatest reputation for doing accents since then. And Jackie's accent is it's very unique. And so therefore I could understand why it would throw people. But I thought she totally nailed it.
Yeah, agreed.
It's funny because that director, I remember having a movie night in Wellington once and watching that director's first film, Tony Manero. I think he's Chilean or...
Yeah, he was at the screening that I went to.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was a very nice dude.
And the Tony Manero film that I played did not go over well with my friends, and that's the last film of his I have seen. But he did 2 films this year. He did Jackie and Neruda, I think, about Pablo Neruda.
Yes.
So yeah, interesting filmmaker. Well, and do you find? So we've had an interesting year ourselves as a podcast because we've done a couple of panels this year. One at PAX West, and then another one at MagFest. About the crossover between video games and movies. Specifically, the panel was called "Getting Good at Video Game Adaptations" or "Getting Good at Video Game Movies," and we were talking really about the seeming failure of most studios to translate what is great about video games into movies. I mean, in your area, which is, you deal with that crossover quite a lot. Like, do you, have you ever thought much about, why are video game movies so bad? And maybe we're wrong about that. Do you disagree?
No, I completely agree. And in fact, I was the person who was unfortunate enough to review Assassin's Creed for IGN.
Oh my God. Shahir got out of it. Yeah. Shahir didn't come to the studio that day. And I had to do it with my buddy Red.
You lucky bastard. Because honestly, I've got to say, and it was awful because... I interviewed, the trio, the two leads and the director right beforehand. And, there was so much. And
they're all lovely people.
They're all so lovely and they so wanted it to succeed. And it really seemed like they thought that the movie was something quite special. And so I went in with a certain degree of expectation. Thinking, well, maybe this is the one. Maybe this is the one that breaks the curse of video game movies. But I came out bitterly disappointed. I mean, as you know, Matt, the movie was incredibly one note. The characters were incredibly bland. It just offered absolutely nothing new. And I think, to be honest, because I have talked to friends about this, we've chewed over it. I think it's almost that video game movies feel they need to be too faithful to the source material. And I think they try and be too much like video games and not enough like movies. And that's where everything gets muddled. And, for something like Assassin's Creed, for example, video game plots are stupid a lot of the time. Inherently, they are dumb. Like, you look at the plot of Assassin's Creed, the video game series, and it's ridiculous. It's
all over the place.
It's all over the show. It is so convoluted and stupid, and every game seems to make it worse.
I think when I played Assassin's Creed, when I first played Assassin's Creed,
The first one with Altair?
yeah, and when the Animus thing happened, I was like, why are we doing it? Why are we? And when we did the panel, I think that's one thing I pointed out was like, if I was adapting that material, I would probably dump the Animus stuff.
See, I don't. We talked about this in the panel too. I disagree with that. I think, but I do agree, Lucy, with what you're saying in the sense that video game plots are very, very silly and stupid a lot of the times. And then also you compound that with it's also a story meant to be told at minimum over the course of 10 hours.
That's right.
Split up with interaction in between that keeps you involved. So when Assassin's Creed, for example, decided, oh, well, we're just going to take that 10 hours of plot and cram it into an hour 45 or 2 hours and just do it at breakneck pace with no care to it. And so it didn't work. And I think it's weird. I agree with the point and I disagree with it because I agree with the fact that they do try to adapt it to, I guess the lack of a better word, literally. What they should do is still sort of, in my opinion, is respect the material, but take a small portion of it. Don't try to swallow the entirety of a game series. I mean, Warcraft is another perfect example. Don't try to do that. Just you have a good core, take a thing that like the director finds interesting about that world and expand upon that.
No,
like, that's how I
agree.
see it.
I completely agree. And yeah, I think that's it. You need to take the sort of the heart of the game series rather than lifting an entire plot. And I'm a little worried, well, I'm worried for every video game to movie adaptation, let's be honest, but I'm especially worried about the Uncharted movie, which, as you know, is currently, it's got a script. It hasn't reached production yet, but it's got a script. And it makes me nervous because that series is also one that's a lot of fun, but it's a lot of fun told over. It's got a great story, great characters, but told over a lengthy period of time. And I just can't really imagine how they're going to condense that.
And it's weird because I think the fail-safe, but kind of the worst approach is going to be, let's just take the cutscenes out of that game and make them, stitch them together as a movie.
I think it's even going to be worse than that. They're just going to take the characters and throw them into a brand new sort of situation. I don't think it's going to be based on the plot. And the worst thing about the Uncharted movie is it's the property that needs to be adapted the least.
Exactly.
You play it and it's a movie. It's made to feel like a movie.
Yeah, exactly. And The Last of Us is another example. Any Naughty Dog property does not need to be turned into a film. It is already as filmic as it's going to get.
Yeah. I'm waiting for the Crash Bandicoot cinematic universe, though. I'm hoping that happens.
So Lucy, before we move into the Overwatch discussion, we've talked one side about your sort of filmic experience, or your filmic preferences. In terms of the game side of it, what are kind of games that really, in your mind, either for our audience who primarily are invested in movies, what are some games that you kind of think would attract? Even someone like myself who's passionate about movies, but like, what's something that would change my mind about the way games can do narrative in an interesting way? So it's not just about gameplay. It's about like things that games can do that movies can't.
Right. Well, I mean, I think a really good example for me, if someone was coming into video games in 2017, I'd probably lead them to Play Dead's Inside, which was an indie game released last year.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. I've
Makers of Limbo.
Makers of Limbo. And again, if you've played Limbo, it's of a very similar sort of ilk. But for me, that's a game where a narrative is told in a way that it could not be told on a movie screen or a television screen. It could only be told in the video game medium. And I can't really say much more than that because I don't want to spoil it. Because it's kind of one of those games where the less you know about it, the more powerful the experience is. But I think really with a game like Inside, you are seeing the power of video game narrative as a standalone thing, you know what I mean? As something that's not drawing from from movies. It's not drawing from TV storytelling. It's its own beast, and it's an incredibly powerful game for that very reason.
Right. Yeah.
Nice.
No, yeah. You're the second person who's recommended Inside to me.
And that's another of the infinite games I have on my Steam account, I believe, that I have not tried yet.
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, it's a Journey would be another one. That's a fairly old game now.
Yeah,
but these sorts of games that sort of exist very much as games and don't draw inspiration from other mediums, because so often you're seeing the games that that draw inspiration from movies, really. Men
like
with guns, like Uncharted. Games that have been influenced from the action films of the 80s and never really sort of lost that influence. But yeah, like there
was that a Blood Dragon reference?
Well, I mean, that's one of the more on the nose ones, Matt.
Yes, I know.
But yeah, there are these other games that are sort of happening on the periphery, outside of the AAA studios that are doing really interesting things with video game narrative, and that's where I would start if I wanted to see what games could actually do in terms of storytelling. That's where I would begin.
Complete selfish question for me to you before we move on to Overwatch, the meat and potatoes of this episode. How do you feel about Undertale?
You know what? I am actually this is a terrible admission. I have not yet played Undertale. It is on my pile of shame from last year.
I mean,
but I mean,
we all have our Steam accounts are all filled with like stuff that we're like, oh, I got it on sale and I'm gonna play it one day.
Yeah, and like I like to pride myself on playing as much as I can, because obviously
that's your job.
This is where I work. But yeah, I have not got to Undertale. I have not also got to Oxenfree, which is another one that I've had on the list for ages. But there was a Final Fantasy game that came out last year. Like, what was I meant to do?
Also, 15 is still sitting on my shelf, although I did just watch Kingsglaive, and I'm still kind of confused, but that's okay.
Yeah, and you'll be confused after you finish Final Fantasy as well. I just finished that yesterday, actually. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. It was a long project, and I'm pleased that I've come out the other side.
Nice.
All right. So Matt, you were for the longest time. The conversation now, as everyone knows, this is the only podcast about movies,
right?
And at some point, Matt floated the idea that he really wanted to do the Overwatch short films. Now, we've done short films before. We've done Kung Fury. We did World of Tomorrow. Yep. We've talked a lot about short films.
I guess The Art of the Deal technically is a short film, isn't it?
Yeah, it's true. Yep. And then we talk a lot about TV as well. And we talk, we tend to touch on like I think the thing that I'm always interested in is the power of movies as a medium and things that movies can do as a narrative. But you really wanted to do these Overwatch short films.
100%.
And can you just kind of fill me in as to why?
Okay, and we'll get into this. So side note to everyone listening. If you haven't seen these, they're all on YouTube. I think the account is Play Overwatch, and you can watch all of these from the beginning, from their first promotional video, which was basically called The Exhibit, which was before the game even released, and then leading up to the beta, they released another, then it was released, and then pretty much at big moments in this game's, as it's going, because it's an ever-expanding, growing thing, they've released these animated digital shorts. And after seeing the first one, The Exhibit, for whatever reason, and I've tried, let's just go into it here. I've talked to a bunch of people as to why these things affect me so much. Mm-hmm. I literally get the feels every time I watch most of these. I shit you not, Lucy. I've actually talked to my therapist about why, because I'm so confused. Like, I know they're good, and I know they're like, they're technically good and they hit all the right notes. They're not really breaking any ground specifically in their own little thing. I think they're breaking a ton of ground in a narrative structure, with which we'll talk about later. But like, I'm so interested as to why these things affect me so much, why I'm tied, why I have such like important ties to characters that aren't, I guess, well explained enough in one medium, but once you sort of go through the game, the shorts, the comics, everything that's around the world of Overwatch, you can get really invested in them. And so I wanted to talk about them as sort of an entry point here, because we do films. They are short films. And I just wanted to start this up. Plus, I wanted Shahir to watch them, and I'm interested in what he says. And Lucy, I'm interested in what you say about these because I just want to know why these connect so much with me.
Well, tell me, like, what? I mean, let's ask that question. And the first thing I'm wondering is, like, do you ever talked about me to your therapist as well?
No.
Okay,
you have never come up.
That means yes.
Yeah,
no, I tell her. I would 100%. Shahir, I would tell you.
I just figured you might have been talking to her about Overwatch in respect to, like, I don't know if Shahir's going to like these, and it's really going to annoy me if he
No,
doesn't.
we were talking about things that affect me. Well, let's just get into my psychology. We were talking about things that affect me on an emotional level based on other aspects going on in my life. Okay. And I mentioned that for some reason, these stupid cartoons, like, hit me in an emotional spot, and I get like that little tinge, and I'm like, why is this that is basically a piece of promotional material hitting me when, like, a film that's made to hit me in that same spot doesn't?
Right. And you know, the thing that's interesting is I mean, like, so I used to play StarCraft. I played Diablo. I played and I'm just, the reason I'm mentioning these particular titles, and
they're all Blizzards, yeah.
Those two are Blizzards, Spider-Man 2 and Arkham Origins. And the reason I'm mentioning all of those is I think that all of those have cinematics that I think not only rival what a film does, but is in many cases is better than what a film does.
In Spider-Man 2?
In Spider-Man 2, when I played that, I was like, man, this cinematic, because I wasn't that into the game.
Okay.
And the experience of playing that sort of sandbox open world game, I thought was so good. And I thought that the cinematic in that was actually better than the movie. And it's the same with Arkham Origins. I think the cinematic where I think it's Deadshot and Batman are fighting on top of like an abandoned or, you know, like a cargo dock or something like that.
An abandoned warehouse, maybe.
Yeah, that's the third one, the least of them.
Yeah.
The least of them.
I mean, I just thought when I watched that, I was like, why is it that the actual Batman movies don't look and feel like this? And even when they do, which is, you could argue in Batman v Superman, the warehouse fight out is a pretty good looking scene, but it's in such a shitty movie that I don't care. Like, why is it that these cinematics are so good, particularly from Blizzard? Everyone knows that Blizzard cinematics are kind of amazing. So I've always been kind of like wondering about that. And is it something to do with the fact that we, you know, like, they are promotional for a game? Like, we are invested in them because we know that we're going to eventually go play them, but also because they are a game, and, you know, like, the assets between the game and the team that's making the actual cinematic is shared, and they can kind of light it differently, so there's something surprising about it. Is it kind of that, or Lucy, you know, what's your feeling on the way cinematics work?
Well, I mean, I think you know, just talking about that's a really big question, but I think talking about Overwatch specifically, Overwatch is doing something very different to basically all of those other games, right? So cinematics in game are nothing new. Basically popularized, not pioneered, but popularized by Metal Gear Solid back in the day.
Colonel.
And you know, basically they've been a fantastic means to drive any kind of narrative-driven story forward, right? But what Overwatch has done is something remarkable because it is a multiplayer-only game. There is no single-player story.
Yes.
And so the shorts are not something that I would call promotional. I would say that they are inherently, intrinsically part of the game. It's just
That's fair.
It's just that you watch them on your laptop or on your TV. You don't watch them.
We just watched them on an 8-foot screen, actually.
Right. You don't watch them in game. Because if they were in game, they would make no sense, and you would be reminded that they made no sense, because Overwatch as a game inherently makes no sense. If you try and if you try and sort of think, okay, this is a world where there are these heroes and they used to all be part of this team called Overwatch that got disbanded and blah blah blah, and now they're fighting for the fate of humanity or whatever. If you actually bring that into the minute-to-minute gameplay, it makes no sense, because they're all fighting each other. Often they're fighting each other, literally. I mean, you've got a D.Va versus a D.Va. You've got a Genji versus a Genji. It makes no sense. But then you take yourself outside of that gameplay and you watch these shorts, and all of a sudden these characters, as you said, Matt, all of a sudden these characters become very real, and it doesn't matter that when you're actually playing that the shorts don't really make any sense, because immediately you're already attached to them, and you've built your own stories. And this is one of the other reasons that I really love the shorts, is they give you just enough information about these characters that you can kind of flesh out the rest of the character in your own mind. And that's what I love about them. And that's why Overwatch has got one of the reasons why Overwatch has got such a huge fan fiction and cosplay community, because people are filling in the gaps. They've been inspired by these shorts, and they're filling in the gaps for themselves.
Yeah, and I think the main overarching thing, and we will get to the actual sort of pieces themselves in a little bit, but it's sort of bouncing off what you said, Lucy. This is a type of, I guess, a method of telling a story that I haven't experienced before. And by that I mean, okay, it's like what you said, Lucy, it's just enough to so people can fill in all the gaps themselves and come up with conspiracy theories. Hell, when Sombra came out and the ARG was going on and everyone was losing their shit until they got bored with it. Like, that was sort of a perfect encapsulation of this. Like, it just makes it so, like, okay, so you play the game, you've seen a couple of the shorts, you kind of know who doesn't like who. Then while you're waiting to start a mission, two of the characters, say, even though they're on the same team, say a Widowmaker and a Tracer in there, they'll have snippy dialogue about how, like, Tracer's not happy about having to work with Widowmaker.
Yeah.
And it's like, it makes them, it's all sort of character-specific dialogue that pushes it along. You add to that there's certain things. Oh, every location, I think, so far, with the exception of the forest in the Last Bastion, is a level from the game.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So you can actually play in those worlds.
And every level in the game, as you're playing through it, is just littered with what, for lack of a better term, I'll call it flavor text, even though it's graphics. Yeah. Like, there's posters and screens, and like people look for hints for things, and like you can tell histories of characters and things like that. Then you have the comics. So it's this multifaceted, I guess, just cross-medium narrative that I've never experienced something like before. And it's 100, like, I feel like if someone with a less fine hand than Blizzard was doing this, they'd try to hammer it all down our throats, and it would not work.
Well, also you'd be seeing it in game. I honestly believe that, and it would just lose its impact, because, as I said, it just doesn't make sense when placed directly next to minute-to-minute Overwatch gameplay. Right. But you're right. It just adds an incredible sense of world building, and yeah, I haven't seen anyone attempt anything like this either, and it is all done with this level of Blizzard polish. You know, Blizzard is a company known for its very high standards, right? Yeah. And you can see that in the animation. I mean, it's gorgeous. Yes, it is very Pixar-esque, but it's absolutely gorgeous. And it, when you actually dive into the game, you know, you feel like you've just stepped out of one of those shorts and you've gone straight into the game. It's just so beautifully polished. And as you say, I don't think any other company could really attempt it, because it wouldn't have that level of polish.
Yeah. There are a couple of precedents for this that, so when, for example, when the Matrix trilogy came out, they attempted to do something where the story continued in a video game, and there was a connecting, you know, between the two. Yeah,
they shot footage for it. Like,
and you basically would find, you know, pieces like that. So there's this kind, and you know, and
but that game itself wasn't polished. That game itself was a broken piece of.
Yeah, of course. yeah. I don't think anything's been executed like. But I know we talked about this at Magfest. James Cameron was working on a project called Project 880, which is a multiplayer universe, which he was going to eventually take stories that happened in that universe and turn it into a film. Sure. Peter Greenaway has been working on multimedia narratives as well. So there is kind of, I think there's this idea that, you know, people, like I've had this long-standing theory that I do, as much as I am invested in cinema and I love, like the experience of going to the movies and, the lights coming down and watching a movie passively.
Are you going to take this to an extinction place?
No, I generally, here's my theory is that every human being gravitates towards the medium by which that they have the most emotionally resonant experiences.
Sure.
Yeah.
So if you love, like if you're a kid and you read a book and it just changes your world, from that point in, I think books will be your thing,
right.
Music, film, whatever. I think we're heading into an era, or we might already be there, where gaming, where video games might be the most emotionally resonant experiences for a lot of people. And because they offer interactivity in a way that cinema just can't do.
Yeah.
So I have had a long-standing belief that my art, what I do for an actual living, is on its way out in some capacity. It might be a very, very slow burn, but and that's not to say it won't evolve into something else. But I think the era, you can even see it with the new iPhone theater release mode, theater mode that's coming out now.
What is that? What is that? What are you talking about?
So the next, there's been rumors that the next iPhone will have a theater mode built into it, instead of an airplane mode, where you can basically, you can still receive messages on the phone. And there are a couple of theaters that are moving towards potentially allowing people to text and communicate during a movie.
Oh no!
Oh my God.
But the thing. No, and yeah, okay, as much as I hate it when someone opens up their phone next to me if I'm at the movies, I have to admit that this is the way in which, cinema evolves. We are not a species, like my generation of people who like have this utmost respect for cinema, we are getting older and we are not, going to the movies as much as we used to. And a new generation is coming in, and these are people who have a shorter attention span or are interested in doing 5 things at once. And so things are changing, and so I kind of have a longstanding belief that the way we approach cinema is changing. And as much as, so the thing for me is I don't play Overwatch. When I played Team Fortress and Counter-Strike, I just hated the experiences because I would just walk into a room and get killed and then, reboot, and the same thing would happen like 20 times.
Oh, just get good, Shahir. That's all you have to do.
Oh,
Yeah,
God. You know what? That's my worst. That is my worst thing.
I know.
Especially because I know it's everyone's worst thing, but especially because I am not particularly good at Overwatch. Like, I'll just put that out there right now. I play so much Overwatch, but I'm not particularly good at it. And I'm always telling myself, just get good, Lewis. You just need to get good. And then I lose again, and then I get furious at the game, and I get furious at myself, and it's just this never-ending vicious cycle. Anyway, continue.
Well, I was going to say, but I mean, yeah, I when I played Team Fortress, Counter-Strike, any of those games, I was just like, I haven't really picked up any online battle games like that since, probably because of that experience. But I remember a game I love is, and this is gonna date me, is Wipeout 2097. And the reason I love that is because
that literally dates you. I mean, this.
Yeah, you've done it.
Yeah. Good point. No, but the thing about Wipeout 2097, it's not an online play game, but it has a steep learning curve. It takes a long time to actually learn how to maneuver in that game.
Yeah.
But once you do, it's kind of like learning to ride a bike. You become one with the game, and there's this osmosis that happens. And I have friends that are game players, and when you can see people who are really good at Overwatch, there is this kind of like osmosis. It's the same like the game I was really into it. I never got good at, but I wish I had, and I still kind of like have sort of daydreams of like going back to play it, is StarCraft. And like when you watch a great player play StarCraft, it's kind of like 3D chess. And it's kind of amazing to watch.
I mean, in the words of D.Va, Shahir, you just got to raise your APM.
I don't know. I don't know what that means.
No? Okay. Sorry. But Lucy laughed. It was fine.
I laughed. I got it.
Okay. So the thing is, I don't play Overwatch, and I just watch the shorts. And I agree. I think the shorts are beautiful. I think they're a hell of a lot of fun. They're very well made. They're stunning to look at.
Lucy, this is where he shits all over our dreams.
Okay,
no,
right.
I think though the thing for me is they don't. I'm not emotionally tied to this at all. I just watch and go, that's a cool cinematic, and I don't think more about it. Now, is it because I don't play the game? So I'm talking to two people who actively play the game. How do you feel? If your character is one of these characters that were made in these cinematics, how do you feel about that particular cinematic or how do you feel when you play the game knowing now that you've watched that cinematic?
I mean, Lucy, do you want to take that first?
Well, yeah, I mean, for me, the sort of the head canon of Overwatch exists kind of outside the game itself. For example, I loved the Bastion short, but I would never play Bastion, and I feel nothing if I kill a Bastion in the field. It's just it's in fact it's a great feeling. But
here's a question: do you think that when people played Bastion before that short came out, suddenly after that short came out, they kind of thought differently about Bastion?
Well, his play went up. His play spiked after the short.
Right.
I don't think it stayed.
No, it wouldn't stay. I mean, he's kind of like, once you get into the upper elos of competitive play, he's pretty much an absentee character.
Yeah, he's kind of useless.
But, I think for me, the sort of the story and world of Overwatch exists outside of the game itself. And it enriches my experience of playing the game because I love being in the world which has been told outside of the game, and I love playing with the characters because I know the characters' backstories, and I've created my own little stories in my head about their relationships and their dynamics and stuff like that through these little sort of bird little crumbs that we've been thrown. So I love that, but in terms of the way that it actually affects how I play the game, it doesn't affect it at all.
I think it affects me in game only in a way that the gameplay is addictive enough, but then you add this to it. So I'm outside, I'm not playing the game, I'm doing something else, and I see a commercial or I watch one of these shorts or I do something, and I'm instantly like, oh yeah, I really want to play Overwatch. And so it draws me back in that way, but also something very important to say about Overwatch, and I think this ties into what I think might make these shorts emotionally relevant to me as a player of the game, is it's all team-based. If you want to be successful, you need to communicate with your team. And the most fun I've had playing a video game was when I was with 5 other friends on a team playing Overwatch.
Yeah.
Because we could talk, not only, actually play the game and plan, but also just shooting the shit and having fun. So you take that experience of really working with your friends in a game where in this canonical story across the shorts, etc., these characters, a lot of them are really good friends. Tracer and Winston are great friends. Even the characters that sort of playfully, there's so many different relationships, I'll say. And it's fun to sort of I don't know how those tie together in my psyche, both the act of being with my actual friends and having groups, even this is a stretch, but either the bad guys who work for Talon, Reaper, who's basically a Todd McFarlane character from the 90s, and Widowmaker and Sombra, kinda, they're always together, they're working together, they get the job done sometime. I don't know, it's just, it all feels very, whatever group you're in, it feels inclusive and nice and good.
Matt, what I'll say to that as well is, the original idea behind Overwatch was to create a game that expressed what Blizzard calls a hopeful future.
Yes.
So it is a game, and this is evident in the shorts as well. So many of them just leave you with this feeling of hope and of I guess that's the word for it. You look at Soldier 76's short, for example, and it's just got that really beautiful sort of little, that ending, and the same with the Bastion short. It's just they're quite poignant, And if you look at the diversity of the lineup of Overwatch, this is a world where you've got an old woman sniper playing next to a girl from China who can freeze people, next to a sort of romantic cowboy. There's something to be said for the diversity of the roster, and I really do believe that both the shorts and the game, and when you're playing with friends and the score, it all comes into it. When everyone's working together, you do feel like you're playing in this world that is a hopeful future. And I think I actually wrote a piece on it last year about the sort of how fans had taken Overwatch and sort of run with it.
Yeah.
it is because the world is really crappy right now, and this game is really hopeful and is really beautiful, and its characters are, they all have these friendships and these relationships, and we're told about them through the shorts and through the comics, and we're playing with them every day, and there's something really heartening, and it's a kind of heartening escapism for a lot of people, and that's the reason why for me, that's the reason why I completely understand why you're so moved by the shorts, and it's also the reason why I understand that people are so really vehemently attached to some of these characters. And I mean, if you go into fan fiction sites, for example, and read some of the stories that people are writing around these characters. I mean, we're talking sort of, Star Trek, Buffy, the Vampire Slayer territory here. Like, people are just going crazy for these characters. And it is because this is a world that it feels extremely hopeful, and it's really easy to fall in love with these characters.
Yeah, I think was it Genji and Mercy?
Yeah,
are now probably an item due to data mined Valentine's Day event dialogue.
That's right, and of course that broke the hearts of all of the people who shipped Farah and Mercy together. Pharmacy was their ship name. Right. And people were absolutely devastated over this, and I completely understand, because they've invested so much of themselves into this relationship. It's really incredible.
Shahir, does this shock you?
No, it doesn't. So I've worked for, it's like, so shipping is a term that I've learned, but I'm definitely learning it as an old man kind of thing. And and I have that kind of slightly, when someone says shipping, I'm like, yep. And
we're all shippers now.
So the thing that I guess I'm curious, I get it. I'm not invested in it myself personally, so I have a sort of bemused smirk about it, as I'm sure parents do about their kids, fandom.
Lucy, I wish you could have seen his smirking when we were both talking.
I can only imagine it.
You've seen it before.
I've seen it before.
So, but the thing is, I completely get it, and I can understand that about, properties that I'm really interested in.
Sure.
The thing that I'm really curious about is there an overarching design to this? So what I'm really curious about is Blizzard kind of, because as you say, the games and the cinematics aren't connected. When you play the game, you just play the game, and you live, you die, you live again. Is there an overarching sense of design where this is hitting somewhere? Now, I know, in some sort of perfunctory research that Overwatch came out of a failed game called Titan.
Project Titan,
yeah, Project Titan, which was supposed to combine a multiplayer in an MMO and a first-person shooter.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder, and that project kind of failed, and the reason they said it failed was that they couldn't find the fun in that game.
Mm-hmm.
And so they opted for Overwatch, which is ironically has evolved, as you say, with this sort of multi-narrative work, around the comics, the cosplaying, the people writing their own fan fiction.
Hell, even the holiday events they do. Like, right. I've never been excited about holidays in a video game before.
I know, neither. It's not. It's ridiculous. I was just like hanging out for the Winter Wonderland stuff. I was just counting down the days.
Yeah, I got my Nutcracker Zenyatta. That's all I wanted.
He's the best one.
I'm curious though, because I watched the shorts and I go, these are very nice and they're very well done. Mm-hmm. Is there a sense of purpose to these that is building to something profound? Like I really like what you said about it, Lucy, that this is the idea of a hopeful world. But I have to admit, I just feel that is something that comes through in a couple of those shorts. That's pretty nice, but I don't get the overwhelming sense of like this stacks up on top of the Bastion stacks up on top of the Exhibit in some way, and all of these kind of like start adding up to be greater than the sum of their parts. And I wonder, is that necessary? Is it kind of happening organically through people just kind of creating their own narratives, or is there a sense of overall design to this thing?
I mean, I would say your second one, the organic thing. But Lucy, what do you think?
Yeah, I would say it's happening organically, but I would also say there is definitely a sense of forward momentum in Blizzard's storytelling. There's so much stuff yet to be mined. A lot of it has to do with relationships. I mean, I know that we all want to know about their romantic relationships in particular, and I think that Blizzard knows that they've kind of got it's kind of got Overwatch's fandom by the balls in that sense.
Yeah.
That we're all just hanging on its every tiny little breadcrumb of information about these characters' relationships.
It's so true.
But I do think that there is a sense of forward momentum, and I do think that Blizzard has an overarching design. But of course, it is a game, and it is one of these kind of ideal video games now that almost every video game is striving for nowadays, because it's ever evolving, right? So I'm not sure that we're necessarily going to see an end to this narrative. I'm
because
not
that's
sure
where the
that
money would stop.
That it is building towards some kind of grand conclusion, because it is an ever-evolving game. It is the game that every other game wants to be. I mean, this is why we're seeing, I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent, but this is why we're seeing cancellations on games like Scalebound, which are sort of games that have been in development for 4 years and that kind of have a finite life cycle. No one wants that anymore. People want games like Overwatch. Developers, publishers want games like Overwatch that just keep on giving. And this is the future. Overwatch is the future of video games for at least the next several years.
It's the trend. That's what's happening. I mean, and it's funny because I don't know where you sort of fell. I mean, I think I can guess, but on the whole Battleborn Overwatch
poor
sort of
Battleborn.
comparison.
Poor Battleborn.
I know. R.I.P. Battleborn. God, man.
All right. Time out. Explain it to me like I'm a 5-year-old.
Okay, so once upon a time, Shahir, there was a game called Battleborn made by Gearbox, right?
Yeah, made by Gearbox and distributed by 2K.
Yeah, and they're the people that make Borderlands. You've seen Borderlands. Borderlands 2, one of my favorite games. The pre-sequel, not so much. But Battleborn and Overwatch dropped, within a week of each other?
Yeah,
something like
just
that?
a terrible timing.
And the games are similar in the sense that they're shooters, but they are very different. But the characters, the art design's different, but the style's sort of the same. And, you have the Blizzard train and this sort of experimental narrative that they're trying to tell with these characters and the Overwatch characters. And I do think if I had to choose the design of which one I like better, I like Overwatch better. Mm-hmm. But it just was the wrong place, wrong time, and Gearbox lost. And it's a game that, I've talked to some people at Gearbox, and they're heartbroken, because their game is good, but no one's playing. I think they're selling it now for $12.
The worst part of it, it's not. The worst part of it was that they are selling it for $12, and it was a total failure. But at the time, the Battleborn account on Twitter tweeted at the Overwatch account, "Come at me, bro." Which is
That's
just
right.
and on retrospect, my God, you poor fools,
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like so. There's a couple of things that run through my mind when we were having that conversation about overarching design, because a lot of MMOs kind of get abandoned over time. The player players drop off. There's been a couple of, as far as I recall, and again, this is coming from a non-gamer's perspective, but didn't Eve, the space
Eve's
strategy,
still going.
And didn't they have major events happen within the game that kind of changed? There were major campaigns that happened.
But they were player-driven,
right?
Yeah.
So it's obviously in Blizzard's interest to kind of keep the interest up, because you don't want people to start the life cycle of a game like this kind of slowly fades out over time.
Sure.
But the more that they can kind of release stories like this, the more they can kind of keep the world going and keep players interested in it.
Yeah.
And something that's analogous to me is I think we're seeing this in the rise of serialized television over cinema. People are... you see it in the Marvel Cinematic
I was just going to bring it up because I love that I've trained you that you bring it up now, Shahir.
I love that you think it's training to mention one of the biggest phenomenons in pop culture.
Lucy, Lucy, did you know in your history with Shahir, did you know that he hates fun?
Oh, well, I got I won't say that I thought Shahir hated fun, but I thought he had a healthy skepticism towards many facets of life.
Yeah, well, it's only exacerbated itself since
with
then.
age.
Yeah.
Age like fine wine, basically.
Like, yes,
like a fine,
finest wine,
fine grumpy wine.
Oh, you are Soldier 76.
He really is.
Yeah. Get off my lawn.
So what it reminds me, makes me think about is the fact that for example, the longer HBO can keep Game of Thrones going, the better it is for A, the people who watch Game of Thrones, and B, HBO.
I don't know. Well, okay, I don't know if I agree
because
with that.
There's extensions right now about like extending the Game of Thrones universe and that sort of thing. And it's the reason why, people, I don't understand why there's a Better Call Saul. Like, I don't see the need for Better Call Saul.
Apparently it's good. I've never seen it.
I've seen one season.
I'm right there with you, Shahir. I love Breaking Bad. See no reason to watch Better Call Saul.
Yeah.
Do you think that what is the point at which Overwatch can reach diminishing returns? I guess what I'm curious about is when you watch any of these shorts, as players, do they surprise you? Do they affect, do they change your understanding of the game itself? And can Blizzard do that at this point? Can they transform what you think about the game?
I don't think it's about transforming the game.
Right.
I don't think it's about that at all. The game is the hub that everyone's going to go back to. The game is what they're going to charge money for.
Right.
But as long as they keep releasing content that makes you feel a part of the world and a part of the characters, I think the key is it's just the right amount of immersion and the right amount of information. Lucy had said that beforehand. Like, you fill in the gaps, and then it's not just Blizzard's story, it's your story.
Right.
And
that's right.
Because you've sort of made up stuff. Hell, so one of the main moneymakers of Overwatch right now is the loot boxes. Now, what you do, these are purely cosmetic things. This isn't like other first-person shooters that like you can kind of pay to win sort of thing. All these are costumes, sprays you can spray on the wall, emotes you can stand and like say something and do something, voice lines, etc. Victory poses, whatever. And you can buy them for real world money. You can also earn them in game. But like a big moneymaker of this for them is doing these loot boxes. And I like because it's purely cosmetic. So you're not paying to be any better than anyone else. So even though, like, for instance, Lucy, I'm on your side too. I play a lot of Overwatch. I'm not good.
Yeah.
So, but it doesn't really, like, I would have fallen off this so quickly had it been like, oh, pay $20 for like Widowmaker's Super Scope or like whatever the hell is going on.
Agree.
And they don't do that. So, but like, I've never, Shahir, bought a cosmetic thing for a game before this game. And the Halloween thing dropped, and I was like, I'm getting was it Witch Mercy and Pumpkinhead Reaper?
Yeah.
And I'm like, because they're designed so well. I kind of lost your question because I was just going into a little bit of fanboyness there. But
well, Lucy, so the question the question was at what point do you think that the narrative of Overwatch as it's being kind of evolving, does it start becoming diminishing returns? Like is there a point at which they just keep introducing new characters and it's like, well, it's like the iPhone 7, you kind of had it great at the iPhone 6, but you just needed to stop.
Well, I think, yeah, I think you really need to look towards other games to answer that question. You look towards something like League of Legends, for example, which was released in 2009 and is still going incredibly strong. I mean, it is
biggest esport.
It is the biggest esport, and yes, the fact that it's an esport has a lot to do with its popularity. And Overwatch is also striving to be a big player on the esports scene, and I really, really hope that it has success in that because, in my opinion, it's only going to make esports more accessible for everyone.
Yes, 100%.
So I think that, there will come a point where perhaps the narrative has run its course, but I don't think that will affect the core game, and I don't think that will affect player player numbers. Well, I can't imagine that it really would, because at this point the stories are going to keep being told by the fans, right? So I think that even if Blizzard does decide to stop making the shorts, because I can only imagine they're quite expensive to make. Not that Blizzard's short of cash, but there might come a point where they say, all right, enough is enough. We've now got 120 heroes, and maybe we're going to put a cap on that now.
But League hasn't stopped. On the other hand,
but
League just keeps going.
League just keeps going, and Overwatch is hopefully going to follow in a game like League's footsteps, especially if it becomes big on the esports scene. I honestly just believe that the narrative right now is just like beautiful icing on a really dense cake. That's the only way I can really describe it, because it's not necessarily needed to enjoy the game, but it certainly just makes the game so much richer.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll say on this, as far as the straight up narrative perspective, and why I pray that everything that Lucy and I have said sort of is going to be what happens, and why I think it will, as opposed to, say, extending Game of Thrones or doing Better Call Saul. So Breaking Bad was an experience that was so good because it had an end. It was designed to have an end. And then when it made money, oops, okay, keep going. Walking Dead's in a weird spot. I know the comics are still going, but like it's sort of trailing because it's just more of the same, and they didn't plan for this longevity from the core of the project. Overwatch, once Titan went away and once Overwatch became Overwatch, was designed from the core up to be this type of narrative experience beyond the gameplay. They've designed it to be that way. They've given just the right amount of narrative to keep it self-perpetuating. So because of that, I think I like and I hope that it will be successful in continuing. It seems like it is. Whereas something like if R.R. Martin, stops writing Game of Thrones books like he's done, and then they do like a prequel series or whatever, like that's cashing in as opposed to just letting, like, perfect example, Cowboy Bebop is my favorite anime of all time because it ended.
Right.
It was designed to end. Even the movie they did after the fact goes between episodes 22 and 23 of 26. And then it's just done. And I pray they never make any more.
Yep.
Because it will poison the well. Overwatch is not designed like that. Overwatch is the antithesis of that type of design choice. And that's why I think that's why.
Yeah, no, I was gonna actually in relation to that, I was gonna bring up one of my favorite movies, The Truman Show. In respect to the way in which people, like the thing that happens at the end of the Truman Show, spoilers for the Truman Show, is that, like eventually Truman leaves the show. And
what?
And people are like, and the amazing thing is people like, it's a terrible thing for the show because the show ends, but it's this thing, it's this moment of catharsis for everyone who's watching the show because it comes to a completion.
Right. Yeah.
And I wonder about I actually love this idea of this thing of like a multi medium narrative. Yeah,
yeah.
I think that's super exciting. I'm kind of, I like to err on the side of grand design when it comes to narratives, so that there's an idea that we're building towards something. And it's, like you said, it's the reason why Breaking Bad works so well. And it's the reason why the end of the Truman Show works so well. That I think the Truman Show makes an interesting commentary about is the last thing that happens in that movie is, the show ends and they're like, I wonder what else is on, and they turn into another channel. And I kind of I'm curious as to how if something could, if they can kind of build towards some kind of profound narrative end, and like we before we got onto the episode, I follow Terry Crews on Twitter or something like that, and I've been watching.
Oh, that's why you asked who Doomfist was.
Yeah, and that's why I asked who Doomfist was, because I was like, oh, he's talking about this thing, and because I've been like watching him build a PC for the last couple of months, and started getting into Rocket League, so I'm really curious as to whether it goes that way, but I think obviously the fact that I'm not playing the game hinders my ability to engage in this experience. So the fact that I watch this and go, okay, that's really cool, I don't think it has anything to do with the technical quality or the level of profundity that
Right.
that the shorts offer. It has to do with my engagement of it, which is that is not complete.
Sure.
It's kind of like if I was watching half of it and, you know, like I had my hand on my phone the other way.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. But I mean, you know, all that aside, I think the way to look at these shorts, at least the way that I look at them, is like a comic book series, right? So
Yes.
I think these shorts are more like the way that Blizzard is looking at Overwatch's narrative is more like a comic book arc rather than a movie arc or a TV arc. So you look at something like, you know, the X-Men, Superman, any big superhero property. These comic book series, they have these grand moments. They have these grand, stories that happen within the universe, but then another story begins after that, and there is no finite end. They just keep going and going. So for me, that's kind of where I would like to see the Overwatch narrative model sort of head towards, in a sense where there are, as you say, Shahir, because I do agree with you. I would like to see a dramatic story arc with a satisfying conclusion. I would like that. I would like to see direction beyond, Mercy and Genji hooked up. How surprising! You know, I would like to see a story akin to Apocalypse or Onslaught or something like that happens within the shorts themselves. But I just don't really see the narrative coming to an end anytime soon. And I think that if you look at it in that comic book model, it makes a lot more sense than if you try and sort of think of it as like a TV show or something like
100%.
that.
Yeah. Another thing that Overwatch has, just from a straight, like almost like clinical how the narrative can be told sense, a lot of it is generational, or it's setting itself up to be generational. Like Ana is the older female sniper that we had mentioned beforehand, who is the mother of Farah. Soldier 76, who also hates fun. He's the aged out sort of the old leader of Overwatch. Even Reaper used to be Reyes, who like him and Jack is Soldier's name Jack?
Soldier's name is Jack, yes.
Yeah. They used to be friends, and they weren't, because then they sort of split, and Reyes went off and did like I think it was called Blackwatch or something like that. They were like basically the Wetworks team of Overwatch, and then it sort of imploded. Someone attacked Overwatch's headquarters. Blah blah blah. All stories.
Feels a little like Watchmen, actually, like the kind of the old, the old band, the old Watchmen versus the new group.
I mean.
Kind of.
I mean, there are two. Right now, there are two generations of heroes and villains in this story.
There's definitely like the old guys and the young whippersnappers. There's definitely that dynamic.
Yeah, and I have a feeling that because of that, and because that's even sort of baked into the core of this thing. Hell, the first character they released in addition was Ana. So like that really hammered home, like, oh, they're gonna make this like eventually, I honestly think that there will be a character that is two of these characters' kids.
Yeah.
Like, I just think that it naturally works that way with how they've set this up.
Yeah, and I reckon Soldier 76 will be the dad, because he's already the dad in fan fiction, in fan art. Like, I honestly think he's going to be the dad. And
that's the thing we haven't brought up yet, here. And tell me if this interests you personally, because so the fans, we've talked about how they take it and they make it their own, right? And they're doing all this stuff. So they've done a lot of fan art, like Lucy just said, where Soldier 76 is like the dad character of all of these other. So there'll be like funny comics where like he'll be taking them trick-or-treating and they'll be all petulant and like whining. And he's just like, ugh. There's stuff where he's like sitting on like a porch, like basically like Gran Torino.
Yeah.
Because he even has a line in the thing where he says, "Young punks, get off my lawn." Like, so he's that archetype. But then the great thing about it is Blizzard takes this stuff and puts it back into the game. Like there's a spray of now Soldier 76 in a rocking chair. There's one of the emotes in the game you can just do to sort of like, show off while you're playing. D.Va, who is a pro gamer in the game, she drives a giant mech. She's a celebrity in the world and blah, blah, blah. She was hired to fight the Omnics because of her actions per minute. That's what APM is.
Okay.
Anyway, because she was a StarCraft pro in the canon of this game.
Okay.
It's incredible.
Snake eating its own tail. But the point is, there was this sort of meme-ish type thing they called Gremlin Diva.
Yeah.
Because gamers are known for eating Doritos and drinking Mountain Dew. So there'd be all this drawings of her like in a dark room, like just chugging Mountain Dew and eating Doritos. And then now there's an emote where she stops, a game comes up on her like HUD screen, and she starts drinking soda and eating chips and like going nuts. There's even a bag of Doritos, I think, behind her gravestone for the Halloween downloadable content.
Yeah, it's incredible, and it just shows as well like how Blizzard is just so in touch with its fans and its community, and is constantly listening to its fans and its community, and is evolving the game. You know, we're talking emotes and sprays. They're not huge things, but it really does show.
It makes people excited.
They matter.
That Blizzard is listening to its fans, and that the fans matter, and that the fans are influencing the world. It's actually incredible to see.
Yeah. So I know we've been going for an hour, and I could talk about this forever. I do want to, before we wrap it up, sort of talk about even small in short bursts the actual shorts themselves. So we kind of talked about.
I mean, I can just tell you which one I really liked.
Okay, Shahir, what was your favorite of the shorts?
My favorite was The Last Bastion.
Yes.
I thought The
Yeah,
Last
that was my
Bastion
favorite
was
too.
I think it's just a lovely little short. Reminded me of the first half of Wall-E, which is what I don't love Wall-E as a film, but I loved that part of it, and I thought it was really good. I like the thing is there's a balancing act that a lot of these shorts are playing, which is that they're trying to give you like some character moments, and then they're trying to like sell you on some cool action.
Yeah, and for those of you who don't know, it's called The Last Bastion. It is probably the most both, I'd say, emotionally relevant and enough where you could tie it to the real world because it has a strong sense of post-traumatic stress disorder.
Yeah.
Because the character is a robot, the Bastion modeled thing that's basically made to fight humans and kill. It was left in the woods forever, so that's the character you actually play in the game, is the, quote, Last Bastion after the war. And he befriends a little bird named Ganymede. And
it has a name?
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I mean, but again, that's stuff you wouldn't know unless you read the comics or do whatever.
It's also the one where you don't need to know Overwatch. You don't need to like be...
Because there's no dialogue.
There's no dialogue. And also, like, I don't need to know anything about... Whereas, the Alive, the one about the
Widowmaker.
The Widowmaker.
Taking out
I feel like that is one that it's really cool, but it's like if you know those characters, it's really cool. Like, whereas The Last Bastion, I don't think you need to know anything walking into that.
Yeah.
You can just kind of enjoy it on its face value.
Fair enough.
And that's why I really liked it.
Okay. You are a not a completist. What's the word I'm looking for? Shahir, when you like an experience, you want it to be like contained, sealed. That's your general MO.
I like design. And funny, you asked me about whether the thing that I would I really like the idea that they respond to fans, and the thing that I keep thinking about in an odd way is 50 Shades of Grey.
Right.
Not because
that's unexpected.
Okay,
I did not expect you to go there at all.
No. Well,
it's a bold move, Cotton. Let's see if it works out for him.
So I watched 50 Shades of Grey recently, and I thought it's a. I don't know why people hate that movie. It's just it's a perfectly fine movie.
Because it's Twilight fan fiction?
And that's what I was really curious about, was that it's essentially Twilight fan fiction. What I love about it is that it took like one element of the Twilight narrative and explored that as a story.
Sure.
And like for all the sake of like them trying to make 50 Shades of Grey or whatever, I don't really care, but I like the idea that some, it's the conversation we're having about adaptation, which is that it's taking one element and really exploring that as far as it can go. And my problem tends to be with, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, is that it just keeps going, and I over 13 movies, I start to lose the sense of actually any purpose to this other than, hey, we're going to make another movie this year. And so what I'm hoping for in terms of for Overwatch is a sense of grand design. But again, I'm well aware that I'm not the target demographic here. I do think that if they keep going, like if I'm talking about this from a consultant point of view,
sure.
If you keep going like this, there is a point at which you hit diminishing returns. And in order to prevent that, you need to switch it up. But like Lucy said, it could be like League of Legends or like a comic book adaptation a comic book series where the characters live on, even though, you have Old Man Logan and you have the Phoenix saga, like things kind of happen that aren't necessarily related to an overarching arc. But what I tend to like personally is individual stories. The other thing I would mention is the film you made me watch a while back, which I thought was fantastic, Dread.
Yes.
I think that's a really good adaptation because it's not trying to do the entire Dredd universe.
Right.
It's not
It takes a day in the life of
Yeah.
Judge Dredd.
It's taking one particular moment and trying to explore that as further as possible. The thing that I'm sort of lacking here is profundity, but I think that last Bastion story kind of had something in it that was profound to me, and I that's the one I really
definitely the
responded.
most self-contained.
Oh, absolutely.
Lucy,
yeah.
Which out of all of these is your favorite?
Oh, that's the thing. I've got to be totally unoriginal and agree with Shahir. Like that was the one that really got me. It really sort of punched me in the gut. And for the same reasons, it was the post-traumatic stress thing. It was beautifully shot. It was all silent. It reminded me of the beginning of Up. I don't really have much to add other than I think that was the perfect example of how powerful these shorts can actually be. I'm really interested to hear what yours is, Matt, because I just presumed that we would all say the same one.
It's actually not. Bastion, again, hit me like a ton of bricks. There's no question. And it's interesting. Everyone hated Bastion in the beginning. I still loved him. Like, not even from a gameplay, not even from he plays poorly, but I loved. He has in the game sort of a sense of whimsy because it's almost like there's one of his when he wins or whatever, like the birds flying around him, he's hopping, he's making a bunch of boop noises. Like it's all very childish and fun.
Right.
So to see that and sort of see how he like conquered it seemingly conquered sort of his dark side or sort of managed to get over the traumas in his quote life. That was something that was really beautiful to me. Sadly, it is my second favorite. My favorite is Hero. Is the Soldier 76 one. And it's funny because when I first watched it, I didn't like it that much. It was fine. It was cool. And Soldier 76 as a character is built to be generic. He's the character that when you play it, if you've ever played a shooter before, you should play Soldier 76 because he's very straightforward. He runs fast, he shoots a gun, and he has like a rocket, and he has a self-heal thing.
He's also the guy that
Escape from New York.
He's the guy that you play in the tutorial. Like he is that much the beginner's character.
Yes,
right.
And he does sound like someone from. I have a Lucy. I have a penchant for all things Escape from New York and Snake Plissken, so that's why he brought that up. But what really got me, and it goes back to what you were saying, Lucy, about hope, is sort of the main theme of this. So you have in the beginning of this short a young girl who is kind of just like sort of traipsing through life, not really happy with a bunch of stuff. Like she's complaining about having to go to the market and pick up flour or something for her mother. And it's a narrative from her mother, like saying how she's worried about her daughter in these trying times. I actually thought this would be your favorite, Shahir, because it deals with parenthood in a weird way from the beginning. Because her mother is this narrative. You don't even see the mother, but it's like, I worry about her. She has all these things going on. And then she walks around a corner and she sees gang members basically beating the shit out of an Omnic, which is the robot, the sentient robot race in this world.
Right.
And the gang tries to convince her to do it. And that to me had a weird tie to like mob mentality and like how we all sort of like how so easy it is to get swept up in that shit when like the majority or the cool kids are doing something. And then there's the action and then the classic story of an antihero, which gets me every friggin' time, of Soldier coming in and trying to stop this gang. Which their art design is amazing, by the way. Like the black light paint on their faces and the skulls when he kills the lights and all that stuff. He has a very Batman-like vibe when he fights.
Yeah.
And then he does the thing which you know is going to happen, but for some reason really still got me, where he self-sacrifices and sort of lets the gang members get away to save the little girl. And then he even gets the money back that they stole. And then like the little girl's all of a sudden inspired and she like rips a poster off the wall and like she's so excited and talking to her mom. And like it's just that, like, to me, to see the 180 and that sort of so quickly that little girl's character switch. Like Soldier 76 was the same character through and through, and that was a slice of life. But to take that slice of life from him and see how it affects people in this world they've built,
right? That
to me was the most powerful. Though I will say the action in Alive and Widowmakers is so good as well. Yeah, that's it.
No, I think that's beautifully put. Yeah, I mean they've all been quite magnificent, and yeah, so Soldier 76. I love what they did with his story. I love what they've done with his character. He could have been such a generic. He could have been such a generic white dude character, and instead he's they've really encouraged this sense of and again, because it is the story of him and this little girl, they've really encouraged this sense of him being somewhat a patriarch, of him being a caring kind of dad figure. And I love that they've done that with this character, because they could so have easily have just made him the generic COD faceless dude, to draw in the hardcore sect. And instead, they've just made him this really caring character. I actually interviewed his voice actor earlier on last year, and that is the way that he saw. I can't remember his name. It's terrible. It's Fred someone. I'll look it up afterwards and tweet it out after this goes live. But that's the way that he saw that character. He saw him as a guy who cares, and as a guy who is always looking out for everyone else on his team, and is the father type character. And I really love that that's what they encourage with that short.
It's Fred Tatasciore.
Fred Tatasciore. Yeah, that's the reason why I couldn't remember the last name. It's kind of obscure.
Yeah, it's a complicated one.
Yeah.
Oh, and I mean, and the voice actors too, just sort of on that note, like it's very clear, like there's a lot of love from the voice acting cast, which I think again just further helps this along.
Yes, absolutely.
They not only are the performances great, and there's a million lines they have to do, and they have to keep coming back to do new content, but you go to cons, even things like MagFest Shahir or PAX, the things you've experienced, but they show up to these cons and like they all like hang out and do panels, and like they're very into the guy who plays Reinhardt. Who's the big guy he was in Last Bastion for a second. He was the big dude in the war flashback with the shield,
right?
In the armor.
Okay.
His voice actor loves it so much. He just like marches around with anyone cosplaying Reinhardt and just like yells things in character. Like they eat it up. Like they really love being part of the property. A lot of them do.
Well, no, it's true. But they've also cast. They haven't just cast voice actors who can do a passable Chinese accent, despite the fact that they're white. They've cast actual people who are actually of that race, or who are from that particular country, like Charlotte Chung, who I also interviewed last year, who plays D.Va. She's trilingual. So all of those voice lines are, someone who actually speaks the language. And that's what they've done. They've honestly spared this team has spared no expense, and also they've been really sensitive to the countries that these characters are from. They've made sure that they've cast according to to authenticity, and you can really tell in the voice work as well. It really comes across as being incredibly authentic.
They worked hard on that.
One last thing before we start wrapping this up.
I'm so glad you get these jokes, because Shahir just doesn't care.
I'm
doesn't give a shit.
Matt, I'm genuinely impressed. Like you're good at this. You're very good at this.
Oh, thank you. You won't hear my diva anytime soon.
Wait, just my one last question. What was your least favorite of the short?
Lucy, what was your least favorite?
And what kind of what are your criticisms of it?
God, what's my least favorite? Maybe the Genji one, that
was the one I leaned towards as well, Dragons.
Yeah.
Because out of the stories, it's the most generic. It's brother, hurt brother, come back, fight scene.
I like the reveal in that.
It's beautiful. And did you expect that? Because I expected, but I guess we knew the lore, so maybe it was less impactful from people that actually knew the lore.
Okay, so when I watched it, I was like, oh, it's his brother, and I didn't know that.
So it had the desired effect. That's a case where the lore hurt me.
Yeah, because you would have known that story for years, right? Or a year.
For 1 year.
For 1 year. The one I liked least, I think, was Infiltration, because I felt that was that was like an episode of a bigger story.
Sure.
That didn't really play out for me.
The only reason I liked Infiltration was it showed a gray area. Before, we've just seen the remnants of Overwatch versus Talon, which is sort of Widowmaker and Reaper's shady organization. And here you have Sombra, who is the new downloadable character whose ARG went on way too damn long. And they finally released her at BlizzCon. They had this short. She looked like, to start it, she was hacking BlizzCon stage. It was a nice little reveal, blah, blah, blah. What I liked about it was it's one of those setups for more questions, because now she, at the end of this, she's basically blackmailing the person that Talon was hired to kill. She cuts off communications with Widowmaker and Reaper, and then she's like, you're going to be my new best friend, and like the whole animation of the boop, like everyone loves that thing. They go nuts for it. And then they all leave. She leaves with Talon, and she's like, oh, I couldn't get her. So like, here's a character that exists somewhere in the gray that I really like.
But you can see how like none of that
matters to you. Yes, I understand. It's funny. Literally the question was which one you like the least, and now I'm trying to convince you of its merits. I understand. My least favorite was Recall, the first real one of Winston's in his thing.
I thought he was just so cute.
That was the reason why I got sucked into that, like a total sucker.
Yeah. He's like the wide-eyed looking at the stars.
I know. No. But that's
so cute.
This is the thing. And again, I love these all, but if I had to pick my least favorite, here's why. When he's Baby Monkey and he's with his father, the original Harold Winston, I think it was, is his name in the name tag. The flashbacks that he has are beautiful, and seeing him in the derelict sort of like Overwatch base just sort of hanging out is cool, and he's still working and whatnot. But what I didn't like about it was the Reaper and the sort of Talon agents coming in and like the fight, because it felt so similar to me, like that action sequence felt so similar to me to the exhibit. Like it just felt
right.
So like what I wish honestly was they just focused on. You could do something really cool and not have a fight scene. I understand why they had to, but you could have had like a day in the life of Winston and still gone through the flashbacks. Hell, you could have done there was parts in that comic for the holiday thing where Winston was just like waiting for his friends to show up. And it was just like, it's that weird because he's the outcast. He's a talking, intelligent monkey.
The waiting for Guthman of Overwatch.
Yeah. So like, I don't know. I wanted.
Sorry.
It's I wanted more from it, because that's the thing. It was so good that I wanted more of the good parts of that, and I think that it could have been the other way.
I also just want to quickly, before we wrap things up, just give a shout out to Alive, which is another of my favorite shorts, just because
it's so good.
You could read so much into that, and and a lot of the internet has read so much into that. It's Widowmaker versus Tracer, but you could also read a lot of sexual tension into that if you so wished. Which you may.
Listen, I dropped 50 Shades of Grey earlier, so that's all I'm reading into all of this.
But I mean, that one I thought was fantastic. It was sizzling with a lot of tension in various ways.
Well, you could feel the sexual tension. You could also feel the history of these characters fighting each other, like especially when Tracer, at the moment I think we're thinking about is when Tracer has Widowmaker pinned down.
Yeah.
And Tracer's like horribly angry, and you still sort of like the animation that they do on her face does portray both that rage
can she control time as well? Does she have like a Prince of Persia thing?
Do you want to take this, Lucy? Or do you want?
No, I mean, I probably she can control time in short bursts, like actually in game. I forget the official sort of lore context. She has a particle accelerator. Is that correct?
How does that work with other players?
Here's the thing. I'll go the backstory because this is how much of a fucking nerd I am.
You do the backstory.
So Tracer was a pilot in the British Air Force, I believe, and then she was doing a experimental time-based flight ship, and it broke. It did something horribly wrong, and it knocked her out of the space-time continuum. She was sort of like just lost in time. Winston, who was her friend at the time, built a chronal accelerator, and basically it keeps her grounded in our timeline.
She's got an Iron Man kind of
basically, but now she can do things like she blinks. She can blink forward and blink backwards and side to side, like in the game. You saw it in the animation. Right. And also she has a thing called rewind, which is what happened in the short when Widowmaker threw her her spider gas grenade and it knocked her down, and she was going to shoot her in the head. You can actually rewind in the game, and everything else, like time moves forward for all of the characters, but Tracer moves backwards, including healing any damage she's taken back to spots, like I think 5 seconds beforehand.
So you can actually do this in the game.
In the game, every ability you see in these things, most like 95%, are things they do in game.
Yeah,
I'm curious from a game design point of view how that works with like multiplayer real. Like it works in Prince of Persia because you're controlling a linear narrative.
It works in this too because it's an escape mechanism. One of her last moves is a sort of she throws it at Widowmaker, that giant bomb when she flies off the roof. Tracer has her ultimate as a bomb you can attach to people, and you're supposed to run up to them quick, attach the bomb, and then rewind back. So then the blast radius gets them.
So Shahir, as you can imagine, playing on a field with a tracer is like playing with an extremely annoying sandfly that won't leave you alone, but you can't sort of manage to pin down because she does have that ability. So she's incredibly satisfying to play. And I'm horrible with her. And yeah, so am I. I was just about to say, and I'm terrible with her. But she's also really she's very hard to target.
Yeah.
Who's your favorite character?
Yeah, who do you main?
I'm unoriginal and I main D.Va because I sincerely believe she's the best all-rounder in the game.
Yeah, agreed.
But I've also started maining Lucio just because I think that he is an incredibly powerful character if you can play him right. So what I'm trying to do right now is just main him as much as I possibly can just because I want to get good enough to sort of dominate with him on the battlefield, because if you have a good Lucio on your team, you've basically got the game in the bag. And you can see this in the pro teams as well. Like Lucio for the last several months has been the number one character that all the pro players are using just because he is basically indestructible if you can play him correctly, which I currently can't.
Yeah, no, but like he's such a deep character because I feel like most players forget like 50% of what he can do.
It's
like,
true. It's so true.
They leave the heal on. He has an ability to either heal you consistently in a radius of characters you can see, or you can hit a switch and he can make you all run faster. And both of those things can be boosted depending on which one you're on. So a lot of people just stay on healing. Oh, they'll probably use the boost to get them to like the point in the beginning and then just stay.
And he can also wall climb, which is something that I am terrible at. Like you watch the best Lucio players on YouTube and stuff like that.
It's insane.
And the best ones are just insane. When we've wrapped this up, I'm going to shoot you guys across a video of this guy who is probably one of the best Lucio players in the world.
I know what you're talking about. It's wonderful, but Shahir should see it.
Yeah, Shahir, you will. It will blow your mind even if you don't play the game. It is just, if you can wall climb properly with Lucio and you know the maps inside and out, you are devastating on the battlefield.
There's one map, I forget which one it is, but there's a big well in the middle. There's a point it's basically like King of the Hill. You have to stand in the spot for the longest period of time and then you win. Your team wins. But there's a well in the middle that if you fall down, it's death. You're done. Something that I've gotten decent at doing, and I don't know if you've ever done this, Lucy, is wall grinding the inside of that wall as Lucio and healing your team without the other team knowing you're there.
Okay, that is amazing, and I'm not good enough at it yet. But that is. See, listen, Nat, that's what I'm aiming for. Like, I'm only a new Lucio player. I'm sorry, this is probably boring for people who are listening. Who
I don't care.
Who are here
Listen,
to listen.
I don't care if it's boring.
Who are here to listen about film. But I mained Junkrat for months and months. He's another really irritating character if you can play him correctly, and I got pretty good at him. But he does kind of have a sort of a ceiling. Do you know what I mean? Like I sort of feel like he does as a character. He does have a ceiling. So I switched it up. I switched to Lucio and D.Va, and I'm having a pretty good time with those two. Who do you main? I'm really intrigued.
On defense, it's Torbjorn.
Yeah.
Because I can snipe with him like no one's business. I don't know how. I set up my turret in the spot, and I can do the arc. I'm really good with weapons that arc, though Junkrat, my least favorite, or my least played character, I can't shoot his gun worth anything. And also healer, it's either Lucio or Ana I'm really trying to get better with, because I thought the mechanic, basically Ana is a sniper that can also heal her team when you shoot her.
Yeah.
Or you shoot your teammates. I was like, how is this mechanic going to work? This is never going to work. And it works so well.
And see, Ana is another character that the pros all play.
Yeah.
Like she and Lucio and Reinhardt, those are the three that are basically like you will not really see a good team comp without those three.
Yeah, and I can really do some work with Soldier, but I try not to because I want to do something different.
Yeah, I know.
But if I'm losing, I'll always switch.
And I also think Soldier is OP, so I refuse to play him out of principle.
There you go. That's very true. Now, Lucy, this is the last question we'll ask before we wrap this up, and this is to Shahir, but we have to. I think we'd both be interested in this, but or better yet, I'm going to ask you about Shahir. If Shahir played this game, who would he main?
Oh, that is. But see, like we've been calling him Soldier throughout this whole podcast, so I just honestly can't see him meaning any other character than Soldier.
But I could see.
Okay, so my question is that an insult or
no? No. I would say 100% yes. I was leaning a little bit toward Genji. That would be the robotic ninja from Dragons.
Okay.
And the reason behind it is Shahir is very good at taking sort of the high road from places and taking arguments or verbal attacks at him. And Genji has a very effective deflecting move where he can bounce any projectile back at you and just wreck your day. I feel like in a battle of words and wits, that would be sort of more of your style. And I'm sure you could climb stuff. I'm sure you could like climb up walls. You look limber.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. I'm happy with that. I can see that. I can see that.
Well, all right, guys, this has been the only podcast about the Overwatch animated shorts. I am so happy to have done this. I'm literally beaming right now. Lucy, you have made my podcast day. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Like, as I said, I could talk about Overwatch for hours and hours. It's my favorite topic of conversation right now. So anytime you want to talk Overwatch, I'm here.
100%.
Well, and if people want to continue the conversation about Overwatch with you, how can they do that?
Well, you can tweet at me.
Like your personal phone number.
Yeah, my personal phone number, my home address. No, you can tweet at me at Luce O'Brien, LuceObrien, or of course you can read my work at IGN. And I've actually, I've been plotting a little piece on the Overwatch shorts for a while now. So hopefully I can tee up some interviews for that feature, and I'll let you guys know when that goes live.
That'd be amazing.
Please do. That sounds awesome. Yeah, Shahir, where can folks find you when you're not listening to two people nerd out about a thing you don't know that much about?
If you want to see me sit silently in a room while two other people are having a conversation about something I know nothing about, you can find me at shahirdaud.com. That's SHAHIRDAUD, where you can find links to my Twitter, Instagram, all that good stuff. Though, as I always say, I don't know why you'd want to.
I do. You're a beautiful human being.
Matt, how about you?
You can find me at Emperor MSK on Twitter, the Skeletor, the number 4 PREZ on Instagram, or Matthew Kroll, KROL.com for my life and works.
And if you want to reach us, you can do so at onlymoviepodcast@gmail.com, or hit us up on Twitter at onlymoviepod to request your favorite, your online short that you'd like us to see.
We will do it.
We'll do it. Or a movie request you want us to see, or give us some feedback on anything we've reviewed so far this year. We just released our top 10 of the year last week, and we've been getting some interesting comments about that so far.
I mean, there is a lot of Overwatch porn. We didn't even touch on that.
Oh, wow. Is that a thing?
Are
you interested now?
Wait, hang on, guys.
Let's
back
take
up.
this
Let's
offline
re-record this.
because I've got I love talking about Overwatch porn. And that's a wrap, folks.
If you really wanted to get me in, this is the way, Lucy.
We did this wrong. We did this wrong, Lucy. We're trying to get it with character engagement.
I completely forgot. That's such a huge part of it. Anyway.
Oh my God. Well, yeah.
So, guys, I'll be back. I'm going to go look up some Overwatch porn.
It makes total sense. All right. We'll see you guys later.
Bye.
Thanks, Lucy.
Thank you.